Namaskar to all the viewers across the country. I am Sanjula Haldar, Deputy Director in the Directorate of Income Tax PRPNP at Mayur Bhavan, Delhi. Welcome to another session from SAMVAAD. As part of SAMVAAD series, today we bring to you discussion on the topic eVerification Scheme 2021. The Income Tax Department is taking revolutionary steps to promote tax compliance, and eVerification Scheme 2021 is a big step in this direction. For this discussion, we have with us today Madam Sunita Bainsla, Director General of Income Tax, Intelligence and Criminal Investigation, Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Madam Sunita Bainsla is an officer of Indian Revenue Service of 1988 and has done her post-graduation and MPhil in the field of history along with MPhil in national security and strategic studies. She has worked in various capacities in the Income Tax Department at Delhi, Jaipur, Agra and Lucknow. Presently, as Director General of Income Tax, Intelligence and Criminal Investigation, New Delhi, she heads 18 directorates across India. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation for this episode of SAMVAAD on the topic eVerification Scheme 2021.
Thank you, Sanjula.
Ma'am, I would like to ask you, what happens if there is a situation when a taxpayer is responding to a notice under Section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act and he is trying to submit an attachment which is more than 10 MB in size and the system is not accepting such a large attachment? What should a taxpayer do, ma'am, in this case?
Say, Sanjula, with each response, 10 documents of size 10 MB each can be uploaded as attachments. Large documents which are to be attached can be split into documents of less than 10 MB parts and can be attached and uploaded. So, I don't think there will be any difficulty in uploading attachments at all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving that clarity. Ma'am, what happens if a taxpayer's explanation is not found satisfactory?
If the explanation at the level of the prescribed authority is not found satisfactory, then the prescribed authority will conclude the e-verification proceedings by sending a communication to the taxpayer informing the explanation is not found sufficient to explain the mismatch in the specific information, and the taxpayer may consider updating the return of income under Section 139(8)(a) of the Act if eligible. Thereafter, the Income Tax Department will undertake risk assessment based initiation of proceedings like assessment or reassessment, which could lead to tax demand and penalty, etc., unless the return of income is updated before such proceedings are initiated.
Ma'am, I would like to ask you now, what happens if a taxpayer does not respond to a notice under Section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act?
Under the e-verification scheme, notices are sent electronically to the taxpayer. When the electronic notices are not responded by the taxpayer, a physical notice is required to be sent on the address available through speed post. When such a notice is served and still there is no response, the verification report will be prepared by the prescribed authority based on the information available from the source and the ITR filed by the taxpayer. If for some reason even this notice is not physically served, then the prescribed authority will identify all known addresses, including getting an address verification exercise conducted by the inspector, and will make an effort to serve the notice on the correct address found. These processes have been prescribed to enable taxpayer to respond so that a fair opportunity is provided and an informed view is taken in the verification report by the prescribed authority. I may state here that a detailed SOP has been laid down by CBDT for the various processes that are to be followed by the prescribed authority in conducting the verification right from the issue of notice to the submission of the preliminary verification report, which is the final act on the part of the prescribed authority.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, many taxpayers might be confused that what they should do if they miss a financial transaction while calculating their return in the return of income which is already filed by them.
The taxpayer may consider updating the return of income under Section 139(8)(a) of the IT Act if the taxpayer is eligible by paying tax on the missed income along with additional tax to avoid further proceedings in the form of assessment, reassessment, which could lead to tax demand and penalty.
Ma'am, can a taxpayer respond to a notice under Section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act that they have updated their return of income by paying additional tax when a notice under eVerification is received by them?
Yes, this should be explicitly stated in the response that is filed by the taxpayer. The updated return of income, if it has been filed, it will be verified with the information and an appropriate decision will be taken by the Income Tax Department with regard to this updated return.
Ma'am, another important question is whether a taxpayer has to pay any penalty while updating their return of income.
No, there is no penalty as such. However, an additional tax of 25% in the first year and 50% in the second year is to be paid while updating the return of income.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining that to our viewers. Ma'am, is it possible for a taxpayer to have a physical hearing with the officer?
No, Sanjula, the scheme does not allow for any physical hearing by the prescribed authority. Taxpayers are requested to file their reply online through the compliance portal. In case of any query or clarification, the prescribed authority will communicate through the portal and give the taxpayer adequate opportunity to clarify along with supporting documents. There is provision for video conference facility in extremely exceptional cases only.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, could you please explain to our viewers how the e-verification scheme is different from scrutiny assessments or reassessments?
The e-verification scheme is primarily a preliminary verification of information which has been received by the department from various reporting entities. Under the preliminary verification or the e-verification, there is no order which is to be passed by the prescribed authority. Because this is not a notice for assessment or reassessment, this is a notice only for verification of the correctness of the data that has come in possession of the department. Once the information is verified as correctly reflected in the ITR, no further steps may be taken by the department with reference to the specific information which has been verified. If the information is not included in the return of income, then the taxpayer can update the tax return as mentioned above through under the provisions of Section 139(8)(a).
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what should a taxpayer do if the information which is provided by the income tax department is not correct, or if there are any duplicate entries in the notice which is received by them under the e-verification scheme?
The notice that is sent to the taxpayer will be very specific. The information will be shared. And if the taxpayer feels that the information is incorrect or there is duplication and or it does not belong to the taxpayer, then the taxpayer is required to clearly state the same in the response which is to be filed to the prescribed authority. And the taxpayer has to provide supporting evidence for the same wherever it is available and applicable. The department would then confirm with the source about the veracity of the information and take appropriate action. Here I would like to clarify that the CIT e-verification also does a similar exercise initially. If the taxpayer objects to the information, it is sent to the source for getting clarified or confirmed. But for some reason, if the information is pushed to this prescribed authority for verification, and if the taxpayer feels that this is incorrect information, then again a second chance is there for the taxpayer to dispute the information, and the prescribed authority will reconfirm the information with the source as part of the e-verification activity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, what happens if there is a case where the taxpayer agrees to the mismatch between the return of income and the information which is being verified under Section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act under e-verification scheme?
The taxpayer can update his ITR under Section 139(8) of the Act and pay the additional taxes. A response can be submitted to the prescribed authority that the mismatch is accepted and the ITR has been updated. The case may attract initiation of proceedings like reopening of assessment, etc., unless the return of income is updated before such proceedings are initiated. So, if the return of income is updated before the 148 is taken or the case is processed for 148, then that return of the updated return will be taken into consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, could you please explain to our viewers what are the possible reasons for difficulties faced by a taxpayer while filing a response under Section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act?
There are a couple of common reasons which are creating difficulties for the taxpayers in complying to the notices. They are required to file the response on the compliance portal, which is accessible via e-filing portal. Then the second reason for the difficulties in submitting the response is possibly that the web browser used by the taxpayer is not updated to the latest version and hence the website is not supported by the browser. Then there could be a possibility that the pop-up blocker of the web browser is enabled and it is blocking the access to the response window. So these are broadly the reasons where the taxpayer faces difficulty in responding to the notice.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining that to us. Ma'am, for the benefit of our viewers, could you please explain how the e-verification scheme is useful for the taxpayers?
In the recent past, various steps have been taken to facilitate voluntary compliance by a taxpayer. Sharing of information through the AIS, that is the Annual Information Statement, and pre-filling of return of income being the most recent of these steps for promoting voluntary compliance. Now, the e-verification scheme 2021 is another such step. It will help, firstly, in correcting inaccuracy in data, information provided by the source, that is the reporting entity. It will also help to inform the taxpayer about any transaction which could have been missed in computing income and taxes and in filing return of income. Then it provides an opportunity to the taxpayer to correct any omissions in the return of income by filing an updated return of income and by paying taxes on the due income missed in the original return of income. It also provides an opportunity to the taxpayer to explain a transaction being verified before any further action by way of assessment or reassessment is undertaken. So, in all measures, it is of extreme help to the taxpayer. The taxpayer's data gets corrected. If taxpayer has missed out in including a particular income or transaction in the return, here is an opportunity for him to do so. And if the taxpayer feels that the department has raised an issue for which he has very clear explanation and evidence, then this e-verification scheme gives him an opportunity to state his reasons why the information should be accepted to be true and correct and no further action should be taken.
Indeed, ma'am, the e-verification scheme is extremely useful to our taxpayers. Lastly, I would like to ask you, ma'am, what is your advice to our taxpayers?
Sanjula, my request to the taxpayers is that they must respond to the notices that are issued to them by the prescribed authority. The verification has to be completed in a time-bound manner as per the standard operating procedures that have been prescribed by CBDT. Full opportunity is to be given to the taxpayer to explain the issue, information being verified. The taxpayer's response will enable the prescribed authority to form an informed opinion and submit the preliminary verification report. Therefore, this whole exercise is to enable the taxpayer to give his viewpoint, to give his explanation with regard to the information that has been shared with him under the e-verification scheme. If the taxpayer does not respond, then the prescribed authority is duty bound to complete the verification on the basis of the information that has been pushed to the prescribed authority and the ITR. And this may result in an adverse view being taken only on account of the taxpayer's non-compliance and not responding to the notice under the scheme. This is neither desirable and not the intent of the department. The department would want the taxpayer to respond so that we can take an informed view on the financial transaction that has come up for verification.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for patiently explaining to all of us the concept of eVerification Scheme 2021.
Thank you, Sanjula.
We hope this session gave you the necessary insights into usefulness of eVerification Scheme 2021 and how the eVerification Scheme 2021 is different from Scrutiny Assessment or Reassessment, and the possible reasons for difficulties faced by a taxpayer in filing response to a notice under Section 133(6) of the IT Act. With this, we come to the end of today's session on eVerification Scheme 2021. I thank you all for joining us for this episode. Do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, and keep watching for more educational and informative content. Until the next time from SAMVAAD, thank you and Jai Hind.